Akira is an amoeba then?
Amoebas don't build their own houses and bridges, do they? They just devour all the food they can find around them.
Is that what Tetsuo's doing? Are you saying he has that kind of energy?
Long ago, there were people who tried to gain control of that power. That is all at the government's request. But they failed in their attempt, and it triggered the fall of Tokyo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Frankenstein's podcast, where it's all about the monster. We are a creature feature podcast about monsters and why we love them. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Praska, and with me always is...
your other host, Khalid Hussein.
What's up, Khalid?
What's up, Joel?
How's it going?
It's going good, buddy. Monday fun day again. I went to Portland last week. That was like the big thing I did. That shit was dope.
What's the coolest thing, coolest site or attraction in Portland for anyone wanting to go?
There's some really cool spots. I this time around I stayed in like downtown Portland. So yeah. I think like if you're a book nerd, Powell's bookstore is like that's definitely up there because it's like I think the country's biggest bookstore. Like I had to leave after 30 minutes because I was going to go broke in there. I bought 2 books. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And then there's this club, I think it's called like the 772 Club or something like that. But we went in there randomly waiting for another event to start, and they just had amateur like wrestling going on. And so I got to just like watch like live like pro wrestling. It was awesome.
Well, damn. Sounds like you were blazing some trails in Portland, Khalid.
That's one way to put it.
You know, because it's the basketball team, the Trailblazers.
Oh, I was like, that's like a really heavy-fisted like way to say it for no reason. But okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's sports. It's a sports joke, Khalid.
Yeah, I got my roommate and friend of the pod, Eric. He's into basketball right now, so yeah. I got him this shirt of Bart Simpson that says "Rip City Man," but Bart Simpson's black.
Oh God!
I was like, I don't know what they're saying with this. He could have just been regular yellow Bart Simpson, but they made him black, and I was like, I respect it.
It says multitudes. I also appreciate how you said that Eric is like into basketball right now. Like it's like a phase for him. Like he's in his basketball phase.
I mean, it's either I don't know. Like it hasn't hit me yet. I hadn't gotten the sports bug yet. So I don't know if it's a phase or if it's just like you get to a certain age and genetically you just care about basketball now.
It happens. Yeah, that's true. Medically, it does. Yes.
All right. Well, I guess I'm just waiting for my time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like fun.
Yeah. No, Portland was great. How about you? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Recently had spring break from my work/school. I teach in a school, so the spring break, which was okay. My kids at home were sick, so it wasn't. My breaks have been rough this year. I feel like I've been dealing with sickness on break, which sucks. It's good. I don't have to take time off for sicknesses, but I'm not enjoying break per se. But anyway, back to work. It's normal. Things are normal. I didn't travel anywhere cool or blaze any trails, if that's what you're asking.
That is what I was asking. Yeah. I'm sad to hear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. But I do have something that is decidedly not sad to hear.
And what would that be?
We have a guest.
That's the exact opposite of sad.
Yeah. I wanted to bring in our very special guest, our own resident artist, local artist in the Twin Cities community, Jimmy Tandberg. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Joe and Khalid. It is good to be back.
How are you doing?
Jimmy?
I am very busy. I am quite stressed. I've got 2 weeks left in this country before I hightail it out of here, and I follow in my mentor's inspiration and all-around father figure's footsteps, Joe Praska, and become a teacher.
Aha! Congrats.
Exactly. Yeah.
The father
So-
figure, you're like 7 months older than.
Yeah. I think it's like more than a year, actually.
I think it is actually. Yeah. You've done well, my child.
Thank you. All thanks to you.
Yes.
Boy, it sure was a rough 12 years before you got there, though. Let's say.
Yeah. Well, glad to have you back. For those listening, Jim has been doing the artwork for the podcast since we've been back for a break, and it's been frankly phenomenal. Every piece has been unique and just beautiful. Really excited for the future of the podcast with this artwork. So I just wanted to do an official public thank you, Jim.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to. I was like, man, it'd be cool to help out more with this, and also cool as I've been getting better to, like, be like, can I also, just get better at doing like art work than getting it on time and completing it and giving myself a schedule without falling into periods where I get so stressed because I've taken on so many commissions that it kind of like I just can't. I stop doing art because I'm just like it just takes all the fun out of it. And when kind of you were talking about like doing a little bit of a rebrand with episode 100, I was like, maybe this is the point to try and see if we can make this work. And so far, fingers crossed, it seems to be. Like I've learned a lot. Thank you for the all the T-shirt sales allowed me to buy asset packs for if you notice between the jump in quality between episodes, you could see when I got money from the T-shirt sales to like buy a comic book asset pack for Photoshop to kind of do that stuff. And yeah, that's really up to quality. I've learned a lot. I'm finally like not forgetting. It's not been so long since I've done any kind of digital artwork that I forget how to do goddamn everything on Photoshop and Illustrator, because it's been a month since I opened the program. So I'm having an absolute blast. Thank you for doing that. I'm really excited for like the merchandising and stuff that we're going to be able to set up with this stuff for you guys, hopefully. So like, yeah, anything I can do to make this work.
Love it. The life of a struggling artist.
I've been telling Joe for a long time that the future of podcasts is it's a visual medium, you know?
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
You just gotta get rid of Khalid. All he has is a good practiced repertoire and all that and speaking voice. And just double down on me.
Look, as the looks and brains of this operation, I just want you to know this thing ever translates to a new medium like video. That's when you really need the moneymaker. You think my voice is something? It's this that people will be paying for.
We'll be
He's pointing to his face.
We'll be VTubers in like 3 years, Khalid. Nobody will have their face on the internet.
Oh man, I can't wait to refer to listeners as chat.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh
Well.
Man, I'm getting old. I hate the future.
Buddy, it's here.
Speaking of the future, Khalid, should we segue into what we are all here to discuss?
Let's do it.
I said speaking of the future because it's based in the future. That's why.
I mean, it's 2019, so not really.
I set you up for that one.
All right, so today we are talking about the 1988 animated sci-fi film Akira, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. I am sorry for the pronunciation. I have a synopsis from your homeboy Khalid, me, that goes a little something like this. Two BFFs from the slums of Neo-Tokyo are swept up in a world-ending conspiracy that will have them battling the military, psychic raisin babies, and each other. Not since Dickens has an orphan's struggles been so captivating.
What a monster.
They're creatures of the abstract that live off potential energy.
It's alive!
Nice. Yeah.
Tons of stories about great orphans. I mean, Star Wars?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Yeah. It's probably an indie of some sort. I don't know. Khalid doesn't watch those.
I went straight from Oliver Twist to Akira.
It's true. It's a good trajectory, I'd say. Real quick, a little background, and Jim, I'm sure you know this, but for our listeners, this was based on the 1982 manga of the same name by the director. The director is the creator of the manga as well, right, Jim?
I think he is the director,
Katsuhiro Otomo is the director and the writer of the manga. The movie does differ because the manga went on for like 2 more years of publication, so it's there's plots are different. Which so yeah, if you're interested in reading that, it sounds like it's a totally different thing. That being said, let's get into some initial thoughts. Jim, you're kind of the one who introduced this to us. Like this is kind of like a pinnacle of like anime, and I feel like it's been a blind spot of mine. I don't know if Khalid, if you've seen this before, but Jim, why don't you tell me what you think of this and why it's been so meaningful to you?
Meaningful, strong, but like
Okay.
it's a really good seminal work of like animation is meaningful to me. And like once again on this podcast, I'm coming in and being a representative of the otaku weeb, culture, and I'm kind of pigeonholed in that for this audience. But mostly, I just liked animation and comics from Japan because Japan was, once I discovered how much more they were making of those than like America or other places were investing in. No one in any country but Japan was willing to make a movie of this scale, scope, or budget, especially in 1988. Like, it's very adult, it's very dark. It kicked off a huge boom for the industry, I believe, and it set some like milestones for 2D animation in general, with like the amount of colors that were used because it takes place at night and that sort of thing. Like, it was really a really important work, and it's kind of a Rosetta Stone of if you're any familiar with Japanese video games and animation, then there's a lot of kind of just elements where this movie was where it was introduced and kind of codified. Not to say it doesn't have a lot of like references to other cultures, specifically like Blade Runner and Aliens.
For sure. Khalid, how about you? What did you think? Had you seen this before?
I hadn't seen it before. I think I'd started it a couple of times, but never made it to the end. More of an attention span thing than it being like not entertaining. But I think that it's like really permeated pop culture, like since I was a kid at least. And like Akira is just like, even before I knew what it was, like I had a very like distinct idea of its style, the iconic motorcycle. They're always selling those like cool Akira themed like jackets or shirts and stuff. So I guess I knew it as a brand before I ever knew it as its own like distinct IP. So going through it this time was interesting. Appreciating the story for what it is, like you see things like Stranger Things, like heavily like drew from something like this, Chronicle, like this. So it's like, I've seen a lot of things that very clearly now in retrospect were like pulling from this. And it's kind of cool to watch it like with that kind of knowledge coming into it as like an adult, as opposed to like how a lot of people probably came to it as like a kid of the 80s or 90s. So just watching it on its own merit, I think the story is cool, but we'll get into it. But like it felt a little scattered at times. I wasn't necessarily sure like where it was going, and I wasn't sure if I was like on board with it. But that could have just been me. But even with that being said, like the third act just rips. It's just like a great climactic like battle. I think that the way that they like kind of dovetail all the storylines by the end together makes it like pay off well. And yeah, man, it's just really cool to look at any given moment. Like that's really like the big takeaway for me is just like, when I was a kid, I was right. I saw the like limited animation as like marketing or like as an outfit or something. I was like, that's sick. And I was right then, because everything I saw to this day is just as sick as I assumed it was as a kid. What about you, Joe?
This movie slaps. I really liked it. Like, this ruled. I feel like I felt the same way you did, though, when I was watching it a little bit. I felt like, especially in the beginning, when I was just trying to piece together like what's going on in the world, I was like, okay, I really don't know what's happening. but it came together, and I feel like it took me a while. Like, we're actually recording this a day after than we originally scheduled. I'm kind of glad we did, because the more I sat with it, the more I've really appreciated and liked it. I've said it before on the podcast, like 80s movies sometimes feel like home for me. And this was like just evocative of so many of those 80s films that I love. Like, you got Blade Runner, you got RoboCop, Aliens, are all kind of like the DNA is in here, but it's also just so wholly like unique and doing its own thing, and it's doing it through animation. So like, I hadn't really put it up with those like greats in my mind before, but I feel like it sits right there. So that was cool. The animation, as you guys both pointed out, the colors were just like so striking. Like, I just kind of wanted to like watch what was happening. Like, it was so cool to look at, and like the colors in general were wonderful. Like, I wasn't sure at first a little bit, like, was something like a shadow or a reflection. Like, I think, Jim, we watched it together, and I was like, is that child teal, or is that like a shadow? But he was teal, so I learned that. But I like that. I like those elements. So like, yeah, spoiler alert, he's teal. But yeah, I loved it. I had a blast with it. I think, like you said, Khalid, that last act is just a banger, and like, I think that's what almost sets it apart from some of those classic 80s films that I like. Like, they get weird, but like, they couldn't get this weird, like this, like, transcendental and like just explosively like kaiju-esque on a dime like that. Like, that was really exciting and really fun. So really glad we finally put this one on, and I really enjoyed it. Wanted to ask you guys, so I didn't really know anything about this going into it. Just again, like the imagery, like you're saying, the Akira slide, the motorcycle slide is pretty iconic. But and Jim, you were pointing this out to me prior to recording, that the Canada character, the kind of the almost perspective character, is kind of a doofus, right?
Not just a doofus, but a douchebag. Like,
yeah,
he's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Which I should clarify. I didn't really like talk. So when I first saw this movie, it was in nascent streaming, where you'd find a weird website with some name that I can remember the way the logo looked and like the font was, and it was like movie or movie something. But it was like, I found like a ton of anime. That's where I first saw my first Miyazaki, and all that is on this like streaming website, and some other weird stuff. And like, I loved this movie, and I do like love this movie a lot. But I mean, it did make me feel the first time I watched it kind of weird, because Kaneda, there's not a real hero in the story so much. Kaneda's a protagonist, but he's not a heroic figure, kind of.
So as I was watching this, I don't know if this comparison works entirely, but here's what he made me think of. He reminded me a lot of Kurt Russell's character in Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Because he's like fumbling around thinking he's the hero, when he's really kind of the sidekick to Kay for a lot of it, right? Like, when she's doing cool stuff, or like kind of the secondary to even Tetsuo, who's like having like this massive journey, and he's just like wants to be part of it. And like, so he's just like bumbling through it in a similar way that like Kurt Russell thinks he's the hero in that movie. And I was like, that is just a fun like lens to look at it.
It's so like fun to see, like, on a dime, he switches from being like, in a way that it weirdly feels really realistic, kind of how like at times he's like really brotherly, but like kind of a dick to Tetsuo. Then at times he's really protective, and then just on a dime, he's like firing a laser at him as soon as Tetsuo is like not like going to become a godlike being. He's just like, oh, fuck you, fuck this, like, no. And then also afterwards still like laments the fallout from their confrontation and all this stuff. Like, yeah, it's weird how I guess I just like a character. I wish more protagonists had this kind of range of idiocy, and not being concerned with being the coolest, most awesome dude in the room, from the part of the creators.
Or at the very least, like, if that is like their goal, like having fun with that, and like making them falling short of that like entertaining too.
I think about Cowboy Bebop a lot, because that protagonist, Spike Spiegel, is that show is all about, if people were to ask to describe the anime Cowboy Bebop, it would just be like cool. you know. But Spike Spiegel gets the piss taken out of him like constantly throughout episodes, and has just entire comedic episodes where he's just like the butt of a joke, but like still he's Spike and he's cool, you know. And maybe it's a Japanese thing, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
I really like the Tetsuo Kaneda. Am I saying it right? Kaneda?
They said Kaneda. I've always heard it as or yeah, Kaneda, I think. They
When we
said it as
listen,
Kaneda. Yeah,
when we
Kaneda.
listened to the Japanese
Canada,
audio version,
right?
it was Canada, and or sometimes sounded like Canada even.
Yeah, I
How
ended up
about
going with the subtitle version. They said Canada too.
Yeah.
I just
shoot,
okay.
sorry.
So yeah, we're saying Canada. Uh, so I like the relationship, and I think that like it's because it felt like so like in earnest, like brotherly or sibling like, where it's just like that like mix of like feelings at any given point of just like I'm exasperated with you, but I feel responsible for you. But you know, like, and it just I really loved that dynamic, and that like it felt real the entire way through up until the end.
Yeah, I really like that too. The dynamics, I really liked all the characters, and I feel like there was just a lot of really, and again, I mentioned this was confusing at first, but once it kind of I put together in my head and stuff what was going on, like there's so many like intricate moving parts that all take on like different tones, really. Like there's like we talked about this like goofiness, but there's some really like earnestness, there's some really touching moments, some really like abstract ideas at play. Like there's a lot of things going on, plus like the political climate of the movie too. Like that's really fascinating. And I wanted to bring you in on this one, Jim, too. Like we were talking about, this is a future Japan, a future Tokyo. It's Neo Tokyo. That's kind of a shithole, right? And it's sort of seen to be more like a fascist state almost. You brought up to me about how like there's an emphasis like where they make a point to show like the cops firing guns, and they make a point to show the littering happening. And why was that so like profound in a movie like this?
Well, I guess it was just sticking out to me on this. It's been like a decade since I've seen it, and like I'm still not. Well, I guess I am into anime, whatever. But like I've seen so much more anime since then, and kind of just learned more about like Japanese culture. That now on this watch, I was sort of noticing how like in something that we as Americans wouldn't pick up on, we're like, yeah, it's a bad city, but it's it's kind of New York in 1973. You know, like we see elements of our own culture, like we see places that are kind of close to that. As far as I can understand, there's like nothing in Japan. Like they have such cultural norms around littering and picking up and not using like graffiti art and all this, and just like there's like in every way a Japanese person watching this, particularly at like the height of the 80s when Japan was the terror of the economy around the world, like like Japan has just fallen. Like they would be horrified at just random little that they put an emphasis to just kind of show Tetsuo at one point just throwing a can, while there's a garbage can like near him. Like just like society has completely fallen apart in the wake of the events of the film.
Right. And yeah, and it's interesting to just like hear like the political climate of the movie feels like like a backdrop, but it's also like intrinsically like tied into it, right? Like we have the talk of like student uprisings on the prime minister's tax reforms. There's like a military coup at one point. Also very clear that education was defunded if you look at the school they're in.
Yeah.
Right? Like just a shithole.
No, yeah, and those are things that are kind of like, as I understand it, like pieces of pride, where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to make sure that these things, at the very least, whether or not they're effective, they are like well run, or they are paid a lot of attention to, and discipline is heavily involved. But that those systems are completely failing the Japan of Akira.
The first half of this movie did just feel like anime The Wire.
Yeah, you know what? I actually thought of that. I was expected to see Omar walking, strutting by. Omar, come in.
Omar would fuck those dudes up.
It's all in the game, Tetsuo.
No, seriously, I say that though, like as a compliment. Like,
Yeah,
it did a really good, like, concise job of like showing you like systemically like why Neo Tokyo is just like a dump.
Oh, my like one of my favorite bits in the movie is kind of the early joke where after that opening fight scene with Kaneda and Tetsuo's gang, the inciting incident, and they've been arrested, and Tetsuo, like the warrant officer is like looking through Tetsuo's like information and like his student ID and whatever, and all the pictures are of him like being forced to be like seated down and just fighting back and just being that, and then like he lowers it down and you see him sitting there and he's like made his hair as nice as possible and just sitting really politely like like trying to look as obedient as like, so you're saying you were out trying to go drive to visit your mother in the hospital at like midnight.
Yeah.
You and your motorcycle gang went to see your mother. I did love when they called him Pops and he was like, I'm 25. Like,
oh, that hurt.
That really, like, to my core hurt. Like, I was like, damn, that's not that old, guys. Calm down.
When the whatever, like, teacher or discipline administrator just like smacks them and yells discipline.
Discipline.
God.
Oh man,
There's a lot of great stuff.
Maybe we should like talk more about kind of what is the story, how does it all set up, and kind of what is going on with Akira beyond just it's wily protagonist.
So the whole thing takes place over like a night or like a night and a day.
Yeah, like almost like maybe 2 days at most. But I'd say
there's something really like Spielbergian about that I really like, of just like this like crazy thing happens and it just escalates really quickly. There's not really like any like having to like fudge with a timeline or anything. It's just kind of just like snowballing.
Right.
Yes.
So essentially, Jim, why don't you tell us what's going on then? What's going on? There's government experiments, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about the specifics of like who these characters are with the powers when we get into the monster elements.
Yes.
But like we have characters with telekinetic powers or different kinds of powers for different capacity. We have anti-government like protest groups, which is how we get our character K, right? And we have like a colonel who's kind of in charge of the experiments and ends up leading the coup, right? So that's sort of the major elements in play, and then Tetsuo and Kaneda come in kind of by happenstance, right?
Yes. So like it's all set up in the far distant dystopian future of 2019, and somewhat before that, I forget exactly. I should have wrote that down for the notes, but maybe Joe looked that up quick. Like at some point, a nuclear explosion happens that completely wipes Tokyo off the map, and this is in the wake of. That's why it's called Neo Tokyo, because it's been built out of that. But like whatever that occurrence was or that happened, Tokyo's now, or Japan society is now kind of falling apart into sort of a fascistic state with like technology and all kind of that. And so you have elements where there's massive protests going on, student protests. Those are always in the backdrop. You also have these people that are trying to liberate certain individuals or trying to sabotage a program that the fascistic government is operating with. And you kind of learn that program is basically a super soldier thing where they were making telekinetic, genetically modified humans. One of which it would turn out, and the most successful of which is the eponymous Akira, who was a psychic who was so powerful that he basically tapped into a split atoms and created that explosion. And they've now like basically buried him and kept him in a massive frozen vault underneath Tokyo. And in the wake of that, while these subversive elements are trying to sabotage this program and help steal away one of the other like children that were part of this, they end up crossing paths with this biker gang that Kaneda and Tetsuo are part of while they're fighting these other guys on the highway, which the events of which kind of like awakens something in Tetsuo, and Tetsuo starts going through changes psychically.
Well said. And
Yeah.
the explosion was 88.
88. Okay.
Yeah, 1988. So, uh, yeah, that's a pretty good breakdown. I'd say that's actually a decent segue for us to kind of just get into the monster of it all, right? Because I feel like that's the big element here, like what Tetsuo becomes and like what they're doing with these like genetically modified like folks. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on, like general story, before we do that?
Just I really like the recurring idea about like what it's like to be like a kid in a fascistic world. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Where it's like you would think the worst thing in the world is they ignore you until you find out the kids that they're willing to pay attention to and like what they put them
yeah.
through. You know?
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Like Tetsuo and Kaneda all fell through the cracks, but as soon as they pay attention to him, like it doesn't go well for Tetsuo.
At all.
You
And
know?
he even says it at one point. That's what made me think of it is like when he's like, why? So you can like put me in one of your labs like the rest of them and like dry me up and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, that's the shitty thing is like, you know, no attention and too much attention.
And it's weird. Like it's weird. Something is kind of struck me as odd is how much like the one of the antagonists, which is sort of the colonel, and he's sort of the military head of the military of this program, and there is like a degree of compassion almost or understanding lent to him, like I guess empathy, where like he kind of says that like or just more than I feel like you normally would have a character like that kind of shown. Like normally he would just get offed in a pretty like climactic way in a movie like this. I think really,
Was
but
the
the movie doesn't.
military coup a good thing?
I mean, like I don't. That's the thing is it doesn't. But like at the same time, you see that there are good elements that come. Like you see that the government was problematic in itself, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is that it's like he was the only one at the time who was like, hey, we're inching towards a second Akira incident. Like we need to be proactive about this, even though it also was kind of his fault. You know.
Mm.
Yeah, I was so confused at that point because I thought that meant like, oh, we're really screwed now, and then he kind of seemed like the best case scenario.
Yeah, the movie it is interesting in that way, in that it's like again it's not very black and white.
Yeah, I like that. It's also the colonel like kind of had to like he cared about the kids to the point where like they saved him.
Yeah,
Right. That was
they made a
interesting.
point to like save his life.
Yeah.
Stuff.
That was all very fascinating. I like that too. I did want to also point out before we monster it up, but I loved the recurring like musical motifs,
Oh,
like
those
the 80s
drums,
guitar riffs, the
those
drums.
Yeah.
So cool. All of that was great. Yeah. Shall we monster, Khalid?
Let's monster.
All right. So we'll probably focus a lot on Tetsuo Shima, the main sort of antagonist, right? He's like kind of an emotionally unstable teenager who starts developing these powers after kind of getting corrupted by said powers. He has a pretty big inferiority complex, which comes out quite a bit. And he mutates eventually into this monstrous, ever-changing mass towards the end. Like at first he loses his arm and kind of like creates a robotic arm, which is pretty cool. But then he kind of just becomes like something like almost gelatinous kaiju thing where his thumbs grow thumbs. Like that was a cool image.
He's like a monstrous kaiju embryo or neon.
Basically. Yeah. It was gnarly as hell, and I loved it. But from that's basically comes from this experiment on bringing out this power in children initially. So they're called the Espers. In this case, it's a trio of psychic powered children who've been government test subjects for a secret project for years. It sounds like basically since pre-1988, they're like eternally children who are kind of like wrinkled and shriveled up, and also like teal and purple skin color.
And I think that's because of the drugs they give them.
Yeah,
I think that they established that they give them drugs that, as a side effect, kind of keeps them basically as children while their bodies are aging, but like also keeps their powers from ever getting to a level of Akira.
Right. So yeah. So Akira is the most powerful, and then Tetsuo is shown to be more powerful than a single one of them as well, which I think is the reason why the three kids have been able to last so long without like going full like gelatinous kaiju or exploding, right? So anyway, they're given numbers. I believe it's 25, 26, and 27, or maybe 24, 25, 26. I don't remember. But there's an implication that there's probably been like many experiments that have possibly failed. Akira is 28. That's kind of interesting. Um, the power is kind of theorized to be a natural potential most people to some degree have, some higher, maybe some not at all, but it's like tapped into. And I'll get into talking about that. But I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think about the three kids as characters?
I liked them. I remember the first kid that like kind of sets everything off.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember their names respectively, so this might not be the
I
clearest.
think that was Takashi was the first one, right?
Yeah, I like Takashi a lot. I thought that they added a lot of cool things. I was really touched by like their sacrifice at the end to save
Yeah.
Kaneda.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess they seemed very expository for the most part.
Right.
So it was like I enjoyed them and I really liked the look of them, but like in terms of like, oh, can't wait for them to pop up back on my screen to just kind of soberly like explain a little bit more. That wasn't my favorite part of it, but like just seeing them in action was cool.
I agree. I think they were pretty cool. I like the look. I really loved how they sort of like combined their three powers into like K, the character K, as like sort of an attempted like as an avatar, like an attempt to like combat Tetsuo initially. I thought that was an interesting like one of them single-handedly wouldn't be enough to combat Tetsuo, but the three of them together possibly might. I thought that was really like interesting and almost lend more credence to the fact that Kay is almost sometimes more of a main character, even though she isn't. But I thought that was pretty cool. The power. I wanted to talk about the power itself, and there's a quote that I pulled from a sequence that I think like sums up sort of what the power is that they're working with, which I feel like it's very metaphysical. When we were watching it, I think Nicole like kind of compared it to like the Force in a sense, which I feel like could almost be apt. But like, there's a quote here. It's this Kay says this in the jail, or perhaps I think one of the kids says it through her. She says, "I'm talking about the life force that exists, even perhaps in water and atmosphere, perhaps even in space dust. If they evolve, they must hold some memory locked inside. If it could reach back even before the beginning of time." Perhaps all things in existence have that memory, but what if the order of things were disturbed? If through experimentation an amoeba were transfused with the power of a human being? So the idea, basically, that's the end of the quote, but the idea that we evolve, our power and connection to this force, in a sense, evolves with us. But if you, and this is my understanding, Jim, correct me if you disagree, you push humans to connect with that power to greater extents prior to when they should evolutionary, disasters are prone to happen. So the comparison to that is if amoeba was given the power of a human, it would just be a giant amoeba eating whatever it could in its path and its destruction, right?
Yeah, that's actually a way better summation of that than what I was thinking of.
Hmm.
No, that seems yeah.
That was kind of what I took from it. Yeah, I feel like the power itself, like when I was listening to that monologue, I was like, well, I don't think I wrapped my brain around that at all. But like I read it and I was like, I think I'm getting sort of what they're trying to say. But I think that's really interesting. And I think it's interesting that it's different to different degrees in different people, right? Like some people have more of an ability to like carry it with them. Some people it makes them go crazy or like brings out the worst in them. It emphasizes that inferiority complex in Tetsuo, right? So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah.
It's like you explaining it that way actually I think clarifies it a lot better for me. I've always been kind of unclear of that sequence. But the idea that it's like that evolution is a predetermined path by whatever is put into stardust,
Mhm.
and the idea that life as a mechanism of self correction is what I've heard described. We don't know why it starts or what inputs it, but once systems start like self correcting, that generates life, and That I like it actually more now. With you
Ah,
describing it like that.
me too.
Thank you.
So on top of the trio of espers, we do have Akira, right, the namesake, who, shall we get into the reveal? Well, what we find out about Akira is that he's just like jars of like body parts, right? But he's still able to kind of come back from that in the end. That's kind of that's an interesting like element of like his power. What do you guys think of that reveal with Akira?
I, I don't know, man. I was just like, sure.
Yeah,
He's,
that's wild. I was
he was 6 jars and now he's a little boy.
Well,
right?
as someone who's seen this movie 3 times, I always forget that reveal, and it always hits me. And I'm always like, "Oh, damn!" I'm like, "When is Akira going to show up?" And I'm always like, "Man, I don't remember what he looks like." And then the reveal
Yeah,
happens,
that's why
like at this movie, and I was just like, "Oh, that's right." Yeah, I'm like,
it's
"Oh,
just jars.
yeah, it's just jars,"
He just be jars.
which just is like horrifying that this child was turned into the bomb and then was tortured to death, like scientifically, like. Oh, that's disturbing as hell.
Yeah, pretty horrifying. Agreed.
The guy said, literally, in the wake of that, we did every test available to science in order to figure him out. And oh,
Didn't you say the name itself, Akira, is like a really common name, right?
yeah, I've heard it described that like the idea is that Akira is an equivalent of, and they actually, I did not just say that to you because I was making light of you. They're like, it's like Joe. And so like the whole idea is that there's all these people speaking in like whispered terms, but it should sound weird to you because they're saying the equivalent of like, but what if Joe comes back? You know, like what if, have we gone and checked on Joe? Like possibly, and like that's the vibe that a Japanese person would have, where this name would not engender like awe and
It
hushed
might though
whispers.
if like literally the year before any of us were even born, like a guy named Joe exploded and like took out New York. Like I think by the time like 2019 rolls around and people are like, "Oh my god, you think this has to do anything to do with Joe?" Like I don't think
Yeah.
in that reality we're gonna be like, "Which Joe are they talking about?"
I suppose, yeah, it'd have a little bit of that Adolf stink on it, you know?
Well,
Adolf stink, yeah. It's just bad. It all comes down to branding, man. It comes back
Yeah,
to it.
that's fair.
yeah, I think that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Um, so the big bad, or the main kind of bad in this, the Tetsuo character. What did we think about like what he represents? Sort of like that unchecked power, um, inferiority complex, power in the wrong hands, all that kind of stuff.
Like, now, since Khalid mentioned it, all I
Yeah,
can think about is Chronicle, because, like,
yeah,
that's literally just the movie Chronicle right
Yeah.
there.
it kind of is. Yeah, now that you say that.
It's just sad because like they're kids, you know what I mean? Like they're young. I don't know how old they are exactly, but like they're young enough that 25 is pops to them. You
Yeah,
know, like that's young, and that's just like really sad because it's like I don't know. It feels like watching like a toddler get his hands on like a machine gun. You know what I mean? Like you're not just sitting there like, damn, that toddler's pretty evil. You're like, that's a really sad situation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like maybe the toddler could do good things with a gun. You could like stop a bank robbery on accident or something. But like it would still be sad and kind of scary.
No, I mean, yeah, he straight up murders one of the other members of the gang he's not even being like a jerk. He's just questioning him. And he's like more asking him, like, are you even Tetsuo? And like that sets him off, which just kind of, cements that he's like losing any kind of perspective and check on his power, you know?
And it's like an insane power. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't even know what he's doing until he does it half the time. Like that's like the worst way to have powers.
Yeah, he teleports. He's like, oh, I can do this.
he said that too. I can do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess I can
Yeah,
do this.
like this, and again, this is all happening to a child. Like it's like the Green Lantern level degree of like anything is possible, and you're also like angry and like a ward of the state.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh, and his poor girlfriend and all that. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
My favorite sequence, and maybe it's the one that's stuck into my head the most, is the kind of nightmare sequences where the other psychic children are attempting to provoke him, or at least I don't know exactly what their hopes were, but they're trying to mess with him using like the avatars. Each one of them is represented by their favorite toy.
Oh no, they were trying to kill him.
Oh yeah, I guess they were, weren't they?
Yeah, it's the Hitler as a baby thing.
Yeah,
like, get him before he gets too strong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I thought they might have been just like testing his like abilities at the time, but that makes sense, Khalid. Yeah.
I literally just
I don't want to brag, but I did read the Wikipedia.
Ooh, look at you.
I just honestly, it's not even a brag. It's because I wanted to make sure I understood what I watched.
But did you donate to Wikipedia? Do it.
He's not answering. Yeah. Small aside, now that because you're pointing out like designs, that was cool. You also, Jim, pointed out a really random thing that I never thought about, but the fact that 2D hand-drawn animation doesn't ever do slow-mo scenes.
Almost never.
Can you elaborate on that?
As I understand it, and this is just a guy who's an enthusiast of it, but not at all. I think it's like 3 or 4 times the work for like the length of a time you have, because you're like, you're having to put more frames into the same amount, or just kind of like the amount of work is like 3 to 4 times the workload of any other sequence. Because like a lot of what 2D animation are these little tricks like smears, squashing and stretching, and all the stuff that we think of like Looney Tunes and all that. To certain degrees, you're like any sort of 2D animation is using those principles in order to have like the principles of how a body turns, whether it moves, how it feels. And like slow motion, we all know what it looks like, and it can't utilize any of those because it has to slow it down. Also, like the amount you can move a hand is so you can't move it nearly as far, and you can't give it that kind of emphasis due to that. And so there's a few sequences where they use slow motion here, and I'm like, yeah, that is a very ambitious thing in 2D animation to ever do something slow motion.
Yeah, and there is slow motion in this. I thought that was really cool. We don't see it much, so I like that. Speaking of slow motion, Khalid,
gross.
How you fighting or flirting your way out of this one?
I don't know, I just got done talking about how sad it is that he's like a little kid who's.
I know. I was like gonna say the same thing. I was like, I don't know how you're gonna do this one. You kind of have to fight with all you just said.
I don't know how you do any of these.
Usually, very easily. I want to mate with many of them.
Yeah, you do.
It's just this. It's just when it gets into this territory, I step back.
Yes, I do remember Kaiju Bleakly.
We did have like a clause or something. If it's like the monster's like a baby, I think this falls under that.
Yeah,
to a degree, in the sense that like I'm just not gonna do that. But I think what did we say is the last time was it like fight, flirt, or talk shit about the baby?
It might have been something like that.
All right, well, let's go with that this time. I would absolutely talk shit about Tetsuo.
So you would do what Kaneda does?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I do it from like an old man's perspective. You know what I mean? Like these damn kids these days. When I was a kid and we got psychic powers, we didn't tear up the whole city. Dang it! Like, you know, I would just really like. Yeah, I'd be like, these Gen Alphas, man. Get them off the tablets, man. That's the problem. It's not the fascist government that's like tormenting and experimenting on them.
All right, pops.
Yeah, I would go full pops on them. Probably not a satisfying answer, but also I'm not. I mean, I definitely wouldn't fight him. Like, did you see what like anybody who went up against him? Like what they had to deal with, like there's nothing. The person with the best shot at fighting him had a laser cannon, and almost got washed.
Like there was like a laser cannon, like satellite.
Yeah, they had a satellite from space. Like I just take out the taboo of it all. Like, he's not fightable. That's the whole point the movie is making.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I would just talk shit about him from like a bomb shelter.
All right, fair enough. So, can we just talk about before we close out, like what happens in the very end, right? Like you mentioned that the trio has a sacrifice. Like Akira comes back and kind of does the explosion again in a sense, but it's more than just that. Like they basically leave our plane of existence, if I'm getting that correct.
Yeah, I think so. That's how I took it.
Okay. Are they creating a new like universe, or are they going somewhere else?
I think either of those are probably a valid interpretation.
Okay, it's not set.
It doesn't seem to me. I've watched it 3 times, and I'm like, yeah, they go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing, yeah, I did also when I was drawing references for this week's podcast picture, I just kind of read randomly that like apparently in every other time in the movie dealing with his inferiority complex, Tetsuo says the line like "Ora, ora, Tetsuo," which is like a really brash, defiant way to be like, "I am Tetsuo." But after at the very end of the movie, the last words of it is when you just kind of see this big, like floating light. He says like "Boku wa Tetsuo," I think, which that's like a much more humble kind of like "I am Tetsuo," but more a humbler version of it, with less defiance. Maybe hinting at in a way that he's on the path of finding some kind of acceptance or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's lost on like any like English dubbing or even just reading the subtitles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any way to like convey that through English language. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good spot to kind of close out this conversation. You guys have any final thoughts you wanted to add about the movie?
It's good. Like, watch it. It's a really cool movie. It's not that long. It's not for everybody, but if you like dystopias, this is like, and you'll be after this one, you'll be constantly doing the Leonardo DiCaprio meme and other stuff. Like in frickin' they literally Jordan Peele put an Akira slide into what was that movie called?
Nope.
Yeah, he put it in a Nope. Because he's like, I finally got them to let me do an Akira slide. Told somebody. So it's just that kind of a thing.
No, 100%. This is definitely like, it's like you said earlier, it's a seminal classic. It's definitely foundational to a lot of like the sci-fi and animation that we like today. I mean, I saw that thing I saw the satellite canon thing in Invincible, and that was just a couple of years ago. So like, that's whatever you're enjoying now that you feel is new now is still drawing from something this old. And so I think that there's a lot to gain from watching it if you're a fan of like sci-fi adventures. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as Jimmy. I highly recommend people watch it, and not because like you walk away from it going like, oh, I'll never like anything as much as this, but just it's really good to know, like, to have this in your library. It's good pop culture.
It's one of the canon. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's right up there with some of the 80s greats, like I was saying before.
And
Very fun.
As I understand it, if you do end up liking it, like this is, I think, either like half or a third of the full story of the manga. Because like he quit working on that once this movie got put into production, and basically by making this movie, he kind of figured out how he wanted to actually end the manga and what he wanted to say with it. And so yeah, I think there's a lot more to this story than it works as a complete story in this sense, but there's a ton of expansion. If you want more of this world, the manga is a really great place to go.
It's kind of a Game of Thronesy vibe to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to our very final segment of the show, our What the Fandom segment, in which we share a couple things that we are into at the moment, or things that just might be tickling our fancy, if you will. Khalid, what the fandom with you?
Thanks for asking, Joe. My What the Fandom this week is going to be the documentary The Encampments. It was, give me 1 second, I should have had this pulled up. It was directed by Kai Pritzker and Michael T. Workman. And it is a documentary that tells the story of the Columbia encampments that happened last year in the wake of the Gaza genocide and the protests that have come of that. And it starts with the Columbia protesters, but it kind of tells about like the chain reaction of like all the other campuses that went and that followed in their footsteps after they were shut down, and it gives you a little bit more like background on like some of the people that were very fundamental in creating that first encampment at Columbia. One of which is Mahmoud Khalil, who is actually right now in custody. He was apprehended by ICE, and the Trump administration is saying that because of his beliefs, not any crime that they can accuse him of, but his beliefs with regards to Palestine and the genocide, those are grounds to revoke his citizenship. And so it was really fascinating to like watch this young man speak, knowing that like not even a year later what was coming for him, and by now we know so many others. It's a really good film. It's especially if you just haven't had the ability to like really keep up with it. It does a really good job of like giving you a good timeline and informative like points within both the college protests and uprisings as well as the actual like events unfolding within the Gaza genocide. I know it can feel like an avalanche of information, and like the second you step away you come back and it's so many things and it's hard to know like what to dwell on when more things keep coming up. I think that like documentaries like this are really important in like weaving together a narrative that just makes it like explicit and easy for the layman to appreciate. And I just, more than anything, I think that like these are just terrifying times for a multitude of reasons, and I am scared to think of what the future holds for a lot of us. And I think that truly the only way to like combat a fear like that that's like so nebulous about like so many things that you don't have control about is keeping yourself informed, is understanding like the fear, like getting you scared is the point, and the only way to get around fear is to like educate yourself. So whether it's reading about the history of Palestine, or it's keeping up with the news today, or it's literally just mutual aid and like working within your community to do something to build as opposed to destroy, which feels like the running theme of this new administration. I think that you owe it to yourself and everyone around you that you care about to fight. And I don't think that Mahmoud or any of the other people that have been disappeared, for lack of a better term, by our government, I don't think that they would disagree with that. I think that this is everything that we were afraid of coming to pass. And if you're lucky enough and mature enough, do your part. Like that's really all I'm gonna say now. But like I think that needs to keep being said, and we need to keep reminding each other of that. And the documentary did that for me. Sorry, I kind of got away from it, but the movie really just like spoke to me on that level. So yeah, the encampments, watch it where you can. It's a very, very powerful story that I personally needed to see at this moment. Joe, what the fandom with you?
Thanks for asking, Khalid. That was a good one. Is that streaming anywhere, or did you see it in the theater?
I saw it in a theater.
All right, cool. I will take a look for it. All right, my fandom, I will. I'll keep it in the realm of talking about societal woes, I guess. But I recently got the chance to go to this really interesting place here in Minneapolis called Free Geek. I think I mentioned this to both of you guys, but I talked with the staff and I got to walk around and take a tour of the place. And they're doing this really cool program. It's been around for a while. It's a nonprofit, but they're working to like combat e-waste, and they've reduced a ton of like e-waste in the Twin Cities area. But their other thing that they're specifically targeting is like this, what they call the digital divide. And so they're working specifically within in our community here in the Twin Cities, like folks who are low income, but also specifically are like refugee and immigrant populations who don't have a lot of access to like reliable tech, and how like that can be such a big barrier to like getting the resources that people need, or even just like base applying to jobs, applying to schools, getting medical help, all of that kind of stuff. Like the idea of like how much of like we rely on like technology to do that stuff, and how we take for granted how many people might not have that access. They are like making a space where like they'll like take old technology, completely refurbish it, put it back together, make sure it works, and set people up with that and say, this is yours to take home, for different deals or different opportunities or different types of people and that are coming in. They also have a thrift store if you just want to check out cool old like gaming tech and stuff too. But I got to interview them. I did it for a Twin Cities Geek article, so I could share that as well. Really fun, really cool organization doing some cool stuff. So I would promote that for sure. I also want to give a small little shout out to a more fun one, a book I just finished called The Order of Grimm by one of our friends of the podcast, Shiromi Arserio. It's her debut book. She's an audiobook narrator, and she'll actually be on the podcast in the next episode. So we'll talk more about it there, but it's a really fun like fantasy heist. Like it's like kind of like Ocean's 11 in like a fantasy setting, which was a blast, and love the characters. Very quirky, very interesting. So I will plug that as well. That being said, Jimmy, what the fandom with you?
Damn, I had a soapbox to get on, but like
I think we're doing soapboxes tonight. Let's do it.
Yours feel a lot more substantial than mine.
No. I think yours will be good.
And well, so I'd like to talk. My too long didn't read. What the fandom is the 2011 album by Twin Cities artist Haley Benar, Golder. It is kind of an album that I've rediscovered, and it's just a work about kind of growing up in a poor household in your childhood and having a strained relationship with a parent, and sort of like moving past that too, while remembering the good times and all that kind of stuff. It's a story it's a really beautiful album, and just this whole year I've been listening to it almost nonstop. But there's a little bit more to that, because I'm not just recommending the album. Feel free to not have to listen to this, but like I'm also purporting the way that we can like do that, because recently this is not like my album of just 2025. I had this album like a decade ago, but what kind of happened is that like we used to buy CDs, do all that kind of stuff, and then the digital age comes in and we can start like pirating via LimeWire and all that, but also digitally buying stuff via the iTunes store, and it's 99 cents a song, which was an insane deal back in the day. And it was convenient, and it was great, and we were going, and everybody was winning. It was easier for bands, especially smaller ones, to sell their works to people through like these new menus. And it is writ large the arc of the internet via music, where first something comes and it's like really exciting, and a lot of like really creative people start doing really cool things with it, and it makes everything better. And then eventually the people that control it are like, but we need to make a profit off of it. And it changes it to where it destroys the very thing that it is purporting to like make better for all of us. And that, in this musical sense, is streaming, specifically Spotify. Like, I had so much music, roughly 120 gigs I found of just music I've been collecting since like middle school, by burning CDs and doing all of that. I used to go down to the library and I'd find CDs that would look cool and I would burn them. And when I found a band that I really liked, I would then go and buy their stuff too. And kind of like, I guess I used to listen to the radio when I was driving shuttle, and I'd specifically listen to Radio K because no one would ever call into that. And when they'd have a call in, I would then they kind of knew me by the end. I'd just call them up, and I'd get these tickets to where I'd be the only person. I was like 27 28 and I'm at a concert full of 18-year-olds. They didn't even sell alcohol in the back of some freaking like art studio in Uptown, seeing Frankie and all these weird little bands. And I used to do all of that. And in addition to that, by the end of college, like around 2010, 2011, I started doing Spotify because it was just convenient, And eventually I went to Spotify Premium. And I had so much music. I was going to concerts all the time. I was doing all this. And then, like, it wasn't just the pandemic, but something happened. And I kind of stopped doing literally all of that save Spotify. I stopped, like, searching out music. I stopped listening to the radio. The pandemic happened, so concerts stopped happening. But, that's been years since. And I do not go to concerts anymore at the same rate I used to. And part of that is due to, my friends group also grew out of it, and I'm just not in contact with a lot of the people that I used to go to concerts to, but I haven't really made an effort to do that. And sort of a few months ago, I kind of heard that, like, the music industry is fucked. Like, small artists are basically, touring was keeping them afloat for a while. That isn't doing it anymore. With streaming services, they are not making any money off of their produced music that costs a lot of money to make a professional album. And that pretty much their only avenue is merch to get money from. And I think I looked up in 2024, I think it was like, for a small-time band, it's different for, say, your Taylor Swifts and your Kendrick Lamars. But for a small-time indie band, it's like 13,000 listens to get $50 off of Spotify, which is just fucking insane. And it is unsustainable, and it is going to, in the long run, really kick our asses. So kind of like what we can do about it is discovering this old and categorizing all this old music I had on my computer. It got me into looking to avenues to replace Spotify. I canceled my subscription to that service, and I found another platform called Bandcamp. And Bandcamp is one that I had used back in the day, but it was pretty indie, and it's kind of like that good promise of the internet where the band set it up on there. During the pandemic, they set up things called Bandcamp Fridays, where like all the proceeds of the money, anything you bought would go directly to the bands you were buying it from. Bandcamp wouldn't take any money out of that. They then got bought up by Epic in the big post when all the video game companies had all the money under God after the pandemic. And then they got sold to another company. I don't know how much longer it's going to remain the pretty admirable service it is, but like I can download in full FLAC, which is like 16-bit, for 41.1 kilohertz, like really high quality sound quality, a little EP from a Minnesota band that hasn't been a band for a decade, from forever. They've kept it in the server. They haven't gotten rid of it. It's all there. And I bought that music for like $10 and I could still get it. And so I'm just kind of recommending, if you want to, because you can stream music from there too. And they might be like, hey, it's free to stream it. It's in higher quality than Spotify. They don't have like the big artists like Spotify does. But if your like repertoire of music is like mine, where it's quite a bit more eclectic than just that, like it's a really great service to do that. And like you can spend, like I spend all the money I would have on music on that, and you can buy vinyls, and then you get as many like Bandcamp downloads as you want. And it's just gotten me back into music, and it's really great. And so like all of this culminated in me rediscovering this album that I really loved. And you can buy all of Haley Benar's like music, her entire digital discography, for $35. You can support this artist. This is not her only great album. Last War is a phenomenal album. She's got another one I can't remember at the top of my head. But like, please think about trying to spread, like voting with your money and like trying to help the services that aren't there to just chokehold and destroy and control all these industries, especially the creative ones that this podcast kind of celebrates. Like that's it. That's my TED Talk. Thank you all very much.
Well done, Jim.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for having me back on. I love this, and I can't wait to do more artwork for you guys. I can't wait till the people see the artwork I did for this like episode. It's one of the favorite drawings I've ever made in my life. The next one's going to be great. Like, seriously.
You've been killing it with the artwork, Jim. Every time I get so excited when you show us the next one, I'm just like, it's just me and Joe talking about movies and shit, and then you come and make it like official.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I I don't know how long I can keep it up. Where I had to. I don't know if you saw the sketch for the gorge, but I was originally going to draw more than just one tree man, and then at some point I'm like, "What am I doing? Like, I'm moving to I'm moving to Asia. I can't. I don't have time for this.
Can only do one tree man.
Like, I don't know, one tree man, Jim, but it's like I liked this other one too.
I mean, I feel like with a lot of these movies too, you're going to just by default have the best fan art. That like,
Yeah. Truly.
I don't think you have much competition for gorge fan art.
I said that with Life Force. I was like, Joe, I don't think anybody's drawn the space vampire like as good as I did. Not that it was like fantastic, but like the Mondo and all the creative collector's editions, as Joy pointed out, they never show the vampire. So I was like, this might be the coolest picture of this vampire.
It 100% is
in existence. Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of neat. Thanks. Keep bringing me weird monsters that nobody else knows about.
Oh, we absolutely will.
Thank you.
Khalid, give us a quick plug for the Patreon and close us out.
Y'all, check out the Patreon. Me and Joe, we're so in love with talking to each other that we were like, let's expand beyond just what our podcast confines us to, which is usually creature features or creature effects. Not that we don't love talking about it, but we have other things we like to talk about. We're multi-dimensional people, and so that's where you'll go, the Patreon, to find out the other dimensions. Want to hear our thoughts on the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef? Want to hear a rundown on the Montgomery bus brawl? Want to hear about our favorite Halloween themed songs? Like, we have so many just like random little goodies, and we have multiple levels on the Patreon that you can go in at. The producer level is at $7, Joe. Yeah, so that's $7 a month. That gets you to the producer level. You get all the goodies, and you get shout out and love from us each episode. And yeah, just like they said at the top of the episode, like the money for this will help go towards like merchandising costs. It goes towards little things like helping Joe get a new microphone when his last one sadly crapped out. Yeah, so whatever you guys do to support us, like truly, like it is a tangible benefit to the podcast. So please do that, and thank you all for listening. Thank you, Joe and Jimmy, for an amazing discussion, and until next time, y'all, creep it easy.